You think Common Ground is worth a buck? Consider leaving a tip at lptv.org. Lakeland Public Television presents Common Ground, brought to you by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund and the citizens of Minnesota. Hi, I'm John Parsons. In this episode of Common Ground, we join two Minnesota authors on a memoir tour of the old family farm.
I'm Angela Foster, and we are on the family farm.
I'm Candace,
And
we wrote Farm Girls together.
This is a prose poem from our book Farm Girls, titled Where I'm From. I'm from butchering hens in the forenoon and eating fried chicken for supper, once a week baths, and that old upright piano with the middle C that clanged an empty thump. From forenoon coffee and afternoon chores, dinner at noon and supper after milking, meat and potatoes at every meal, whole milk fresh from the bulk tank, the cream rising to the top. From fried bacon, fried ham, fried steak, fried eggs, fried potatoes, and Mom's homemade donuts, beet pickles, head cheese, pickled pig's feet, and cream and bread with a little sugar sprinkled on top. From cooking for threshers and cooking for silo fillers, crick, not creek, swatter, not swather, warsh, not wash, nuttin', not nothing. From Norwegian swear words and a grandpa who drank, covering the smell with sen-sen candies. From Auntie Ruby with her tightly curled hair and house dresses, who pinched my cheeks with hands so chapped it hurt. From great Uncle Louie, who always chewed snooze and stuck out his finger for me to pull. And fat Grandma Inga, who warned me not to. I'm from Lefse, Krumkaka, and rhubarb, gritty with soil, sour in my mouth. Ripe wheat, chewed into gum. Apple pies, mud pies, cow pies. The smell of manure and the suck of a baby calf's mouth. From hay bales that made you sneeze and straw of pure gold. From Cumbas to the cows and Sickum to the dog. A two-holer outhouse and a one-room schoolhouse. Pump, pump, pull away, Red Rover, and Auntie I over. Climbing trees, skipping stones, and hopscotch. From green hills and pastures dotted with hardwoods, and rocks the size of melons heaved up in the soil. From dirt, dark as blackstrap molasses, and crops sprouting like new hair in the spring fields. From coffee in a jar carried barefoot through the fields, to my father's waiting hands, from salt and sweat and dirt-creased skin, from all of this, from home.
This place is home to our family, even though we've been off of it for more than 40 years. Our grandparents saved money as immigrants and purchased the farm in 1910. They lived in a little cabin on the property and built the big house in the 20s. And the family stories of their struggle to become settled in Minnesota and this place go very deep in us.
The experience of growing up as children or grandchildren of immigrants is universal regardless of what your ancestry might be.
I'm the grandchild of immigrants, and I grew up listening to the family stories about what it took to come to Minnesota and start over. I have 3 sets of great-grandparents buried within 5 miles of our family farm in Otter Tail County. And when I think of what they left behind to come to America to give me and my generation a better start, it makes me really interested in what they went through and what they experienced, and was it worth it? I wrote a poem about a trip I took to Norway. And Angela, not to be outdone, wrote another one to answer that poem, and hers is better. But I'll read my poem, Third Cousins in Norway. I would have been the one who stayed behind, timid, afraid of oceans, choosing familiar over precarious, caring for parents and sickly aunts, safer than uncertain wilderness. I would have written letters with news of deaths or sickness, births and weddings, tucked pansy seeds inside envelopes to homesick brothers on North Dakota prairies or Minnesota pineries, read their stories from afar, stroking blonde curls of nephew's hair, pressing their locks to my lips, knowing I would never see their faces. I would have been the last of my generation left in Norway, the only one to speak with tenderness, connect a face with names, share memories of childhood, answer questions why they left and what they gained or lost by leaving. I would be the one on the other side of the door, flatbread and lefse baked and waiting, hand-woven cloth with Hardinger lace, reindeer sausage, Yetoast brown cheese, everything to perfection, welcoming distant cousins from America, astonished they could travel so far, yet find their way home.
So after I read that poem that Candace just read, I thought, what? I would have been the first one on the bus. So I had to write my own version. It's called Galloping to America. I would have been the dreamer, scoffing at my sister's fear, naming her ignorant, unimaginative, boring. I would have counted my kroners, hoarding them as dreams, ironing for the nobleman's widow, sitting in childbed for the neighbor, never spending on dresses or foolery, saving, always saving, building passage to America. I would have waved away my mother's clutching hands, refused to practice the Hardinger lace stitches, scorned the work of women, learned to plant and harvest fields, spent time teaching my tongue the strange English words. I would have painted my name on a travel trunk, sturdy enough to cross oceans and the sea of prairie, folded and packed the fine linen stitch for my dowry, filled the empty spaces with the practical, aprons, metal pots, seeds for the new land, imagining black ribbons behind my plow. I would have pushed aside marriage offers from timid men, scorned their thin arms, dreamed instead of a Viking, broad-shouldered, adventurous enough to cross the seas. I would have longed for blonde-haired sons, bold like their father, who would push the plow and protect the homestead, and daughters, tall and lithe, who would marry into money. In my daydreams, we prospered. Letters home bragged of riches, servants no more, landowners. In my night dreams, I sailed across the sea, my phantom husband beside me, galloping the ocean waves, our faces turned towards America. Come along on a tour of the family farm. It used to be trees. This was open, and then there was a big steer shed in the back where Dad kept the steers.
And a pit silo.
Oh, that's right.
A pit silo back there. But the barn is the same.
It's the same, but it's not red anymore.
No,
The cupola is there,
the cupola's there.
and the silo doesn't have a cover.
I think there was a tornado that went through.
Oh.
And if you remember, a big tree right there by the sidewalk and then
Yes.
another on the hill, they were both taken in the tornado.
Oh,
That happened soon after we moved away.
yes. Well, I remember my brother Frank and I standing on the cistern over there and watching a tornado come in off over the lake.
Yes.
And we stood and watched it. We were home alone. We didn't go for shelter. We wanted to see what was going to happen, and then it veered off and disappeared.
Yes, I remember seeing a tornado once when I was a little kid too. I really appreciated growing up on a farm. I loved being able to roam 245 acres. There were no worries about kidnappers or any kind of problems. We just ran free. There was no traffic. We played in the pasture. We ran in the woods. We splashed in the lake. We just ran over this land. We know every inch of it. And that's not to mention all the stones we picked and how we know every inch of every field because of the stone picking.
Yes, that was always a hard job. And my brother, who is only a year older than I am, we spent hours riding horseback.
Yes.
And I don't think
I
Candace,
didn't have a horse.
She
no.
didn't have a horse, but my brother and I had that in common. And we rode all over this farm and played cowboys and Indians and just had so much fun.
Let's walk down this way.
Let's go down here. We had 2 pastures on the farm, one over here and one over there. And the horses were usually over in this pasture.
And when I was little, beef cattle.
Yes, beef cattle. But the cows used to like to go in this sloughy area here.
And we used to play on the hummocks, remember?
That hill up there used to be wheat.
Yes.
And my
wheat.
brother and I used to go up there and we used to build forts in the wheat. And I remember one time after doing that, we must have had over 100 wood ticks on each of us.
Yes.
So we didn't do it anymore after that. There was just too many of them.
And we'd also fly kites on that hill. We were never very good at it.
No, because we had homemade kites.
Yes. Dream with me. I dreamed the purple evening sky. Dream with me. I dreamed the paths where geese would fly. I dreamed a dream for you. Rise with me. Stretch wings to skies with me. Angels hide in prairie winds, lifting you still higher. These servants, flames of fire, come dream with me. Soar with me, glide over open plains. Release your spirit, dare to dream. I dream this moment that I bring to you. I dream this moment that I sing to you. Come dream with me.
I don't know which branch it was. It's probably long gone, but we had an old Shetland pony. And whenever we'd get in this area, she'd run underneath that tree and try to knock you off
And
every
she did.
single time. She was so mean.
And bite.
And bite and kick. But we loved her.
See, this wasn't mowed when we lived here. This was all
No.
grass.
There used to be a big gate here.
Our parents took over the farm as young newlyweds, and we grew up here and would still be here, except our father's health forced him to sell the farm in 1970. And I feel at this age of my life like a homing pigeon. I just love to write about home, and I love to research and study about home, about this very place.
Linda has told a story about Grandma during the Depression. So that would have been late 20s, early 30s. And she had told Linda that during those rough times, she went through all the coat pockets up in the attic and all of the trunks and through everything that was stored looking for a penny to donate to the church coffers when she went to church. They had no cash.
She said she would not go to church without something to put in the offering. Our family was involved with Tordenskjold Lutheran Free Church since 1910, when our grandparents bought this farm. And when we were kids, do you remember hearing the bell?
Yes.
We would be out playing on a Sunday morning, and the sound of the bell would come over the lake to our farm, and that was the 1 hour warning that church was starting in 1 hour. And such a beautiful sound.
Yes.
And I'm sure the bell was from a bygone era when people didn't have clocks or watches. Drought. We talked about the weather, the crops, and the cost of gasoline. Complained about taxes and the price of wheat. Every conversation a variation of the same. The women stitched feed sack dresses or embroidered dish towels and worried about the corn. The men cast anxious glances toward the skies, while monkeying with worn-down tractors or patching old wagons with baling wire. We never talked about feelings, never acknowledged emotions. We commented on how someone was taking a death in the family, bragged about the one who just kept working, the one who refused to let a little thing like death or sickness get them down or set them back. We glossed over the big things and dwelt in smaller places, closer in size to the acreage of our farm. Maybe town people talked about deeper issues. We didn't. When a neighbor shot himself, Auntie Ragna complained at the funeral about the lack of butter on the egg salad sandwiches. Old Lady Nordstrom, trying to save a penny, she said, always trying to squeeze another nickel out of every dime. No one mentioned the suicide. No one talked to the boys, red and sodden in their Sunday suits, other than a crisp nod and a quick handshake. They held up real well, Auntie would say later, never shed a tear. My father never wanted to be a farmer. He had dreams of teaching history, and he was attending a boarding school in Fergus Falls when the stock market crashed in '29, and he was forced to quit school because of lack of money. And so he came home and farmed with his father and later took the farm over. But it was never his first love. He was a good farmer, worked hard at it, but he always wished he could be teaching history. And so he really pushed for us to get an education, really pushed for us to not give up and keep working at an education.
Yes.
And he was a wonderful reader. I don't think I ever remember seeing him without a book tucked in his pocket, his back pocket, under his arm, and he would read at odd moments, very self-educated that way.
He liked the Western novels, but he
Yes.
also read books on science and history and anything
He
could
read
get.
everything. He read Homer, he read the Bible, he read the newspapers, magazines.
He was a good role model.
He was a good role model, and we all loved to read.
Yes, and
Yes.
Mom read too.
Mom read too.
We were a family of readers. We had one channel on the television,
Yes.
a black and white television, and when my sister Claudia would sew, every time she hit that old treadle, the TV would bzzz. And so we'd say, "Stop sewing, wait till a commercial." And then she would say, "Well, do you want new clothes or not?" And she would usually continue sewing.
Yeah.
But there was never anything on TV to watch if it did work. And so we read.
Our entertainment was reading.
Yes, that's what we did. We'd go to the Fergus Falls Library and we would load up with books. And I remember that joy of having 10 new books to read. And then we would come home and we would just mow through those books. Still like to go to the library today. Across the lake and through the trees, that's where the Tordenskjold cemetery is, where 3 generations of our family have been buried. And we try to get back there once a year to put flowers on the graves or just to visit the graves. We don't always make it. But that's where Irene Hannah Christine's grave is, and I wrote a poem about Irene. It's in
Yes.
Farm Girls. Grandma lost her only daughter when she was 3, when Irene was only 3 years old. It was a very sad thing. And of course it haunted her for the rest of her life. Good night, Irene. Irene Hannah Christine Jensen, 1910 to 1913. The portrait hung over Grandma's 4-poster bed. The background a white mist, wispy blonde hair, black button boots, eyelet apron, and a folded pocket knife clutched in her small hands. Irene Hannah Christine, a child so special she needed 2 middle names. Grandma would sigh as she told the story of Irene's short life, her fevered face, labored breath, no penicillin, no doctors, grudging acceptance, God's will be done. Years later, whenever Goodnight Irene would play on the old Philco radio, Grandma would sing along, her voice a whispered quaver. Good night, Irene. Good night, Irene. I'll see you in my dreams.
If she would have lived, we would have had an aunt and probably an uncle and cousins, and our life would have been so different.
It would have been. And Grandma wouldn't have had that horrible heartache of losing a child at 3. And if you notice on there, Irene died 1 year and 1 day before our father was born.
Yes.
So Grandma had, at least she had Dad after that.
Yes.
But she never got over that. Our parents are buried together on the other side of the cemetery. Dad died in 1972, just 2 years after we moved off the farm. And Mom lived till be 84 years old. She just died 3 years ago, and so she's buried beside Dad.
Oh, the stones look good.
Yes.
Better give some to Dad.
Well, I suppose. You think he'd appreciate them?
He probably would.
I wish I would have had more.
It's hard when we're not here to water them.
Yes.
And Dad's resting by all his neighbors, the people he grew up with.
Yep.
The Mortensons, the Lindquists,
Hoff.
Jacobsons, the Hoffs.
Yep.
Right. So it all comes down to this. One of the traits of a successful writer is someone who is stubborn and knows how to persevere. And I credit a lot of my perseverance with growing up on a dairy farm and watching my parents milk those cows morning and night every day of the year. No days off, no chance to get away. And that's kind of the way writing is. You have to just set your mind to do it. You have to turn off everything else and do the writing. And it's a lot like dairy farming that way.
People often ask us how we got to writing poetry from the farm. You know, we picked a lot of rocks, we fed the calves, we did everything that had to be done on the farm. So how did we end up writing poetry? Well, I have written a little essay about that called On Oprah's Couch.
Let's write a book together, Angela said one December afternoon when we 4 sisters gathered for our mother's birthday. Can't you imagine all 4 of us lined up on Oprah's couch? We couldn't, and howled at the very idea. We were always avid readers, but none of us had attempted writing. Angela insisted, Oprah gazing at us with that starry-eyed look of admiration. Where did you farm girls find such talent? We all laughed. I must admit I didn't take Angela too seriously. I was busy raising teenagers and working full-time. Where could I find time to write a book, let alone travel to Chicago? But Angela persisted. She brought up Oprah at every holiday and in every phone conversation. We can do it, she would say, with conviction in her tone, almost making me believe. Linda writes the spicy parts. Claudia edits. Candy, you write the moral to the story. Angela acted like it was nothing at all. It will be easier that way, all 4 of us working together. It sounded to me as if something were missing, that we 3 older sisters would do all the work. What are you going to do? Oh, I'll do the rest, she said with a wave of her hand. Can't be that hard. Angela got me thinking, not about Oprah, but about writing. It was something I'd always wanted to try, but never had the courage. What if I failed? What if readers didn't like my work? What could I write about? I couldn't get it out of my mind. I joined a local writers group and scribbled a few short pieces for local periodicals. When my youngest daughter went off to college, I found time for a little genealogy and discovered my great-grandfather had driven the stagecoach to Fort Abercrombie shortly after the 1862 Dakota conflict. My son challenged me to write a book about it. I called my sisters. I'm starting our book, I said with an SOS appeal. Linda had no interest in writing the spicy parts. Claudia didn't offer to edit. Angela was too busy with her kids.
And so, like the little red hen, I did it on my own. Somehow I penned a first draft of Abercrombie Trail. It was harder than I thought. I wrote, rewrote, and signed up for more workshops. I couldn't find a publisher. A mentor suggested I write another book. Pomme de Terre, my second book, became a reality. I found a publisher for my first 3 novels after I finished the first draft of Birdie. By the time Blooming Prairie neared completion, Angela and Claudia both helped edit. Linda, an early reader, insisted on a happy ending. Sometimes when I'm feeling discouraged about writing, I blame my sister. After all, it was her fault. And yes, she's still talking about Oprah's couch. So what do you say, Oprah? Are you ready for us?
Thank you so much for watching. Join me next time for another episode of Common Ground. If you have an idea for a Common Ground piece that pertains to North Central Minnesota, email us at legacy@lptv.org or call us 218-333-3022. To view any episode of Common Ground online, visit us at lptv.org. To order individual segments or entire episodes of Common Ground, please call 218-333-3020. Common Ground is brought to you by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund with money from the vote of the people on the 4th of November, 2008.